until 3:45. Yeah, 60 miles per hour is basically the wind speed that we have. That means it's probably going to be out of Union County long before the warning can even expire there. So let me update our storm track here. We'll put it at 60 miles per hour. I'm going to track way ahead of this so we could stay ahead of this as it moves into Anson County. So areas around Marshville, 319. Peachland around 323, Polkton 327. So that's moving into Anson County, and then Ansonville at 335. So Anson and maybe eventually southern Stanley County could clip this just a little bit as it moves into southeastern parts of the county. So let's go in closer and kind of show you the area we're talking about right there. I'm going to go with the velocity data again. I mean, there's really strong winds in there. 601 is where the storm is crossing right now, and to me that looks to be the area, Medland Road heading up towards White Store Road and then towards Marshville. So again, remember, the radar is showing where the storm was, not exactly where it is, because it's already probably moved past that location. So a little bit of rotation there, north side of Pageland, heading towards Marshville right now at 60 miles per hour. So it is absolutely flying off to the north and east. If you're in this area, go ahead, get to the middle of your house, the most interior room that you can, away from the outside walls and windows. If you're in a mobile home and you have time, go to a sturdier structure. If not, last-ditch effort is to get to the middle of your mobile home as well. It's not the safest place to be, but it can be the last resort kind of place to head and seek shelter from this storm, because this definitely has strong winds at the very least. And again, we've seen several of these storms spin up very quickly, even outside of warnings today. So go ahead and seek shelter if you're anywhere east of this line as well, even if you're not in the warning, because all along this line, if you look carefully, we've got some little spin ups here west of Albemarle. Here's one east of Monroe, and then this one north of Pageland. And again, these are all pushing off to the north and east at approximately 60 miles per hour. So they are moving quick. By the time we get these warnings, we're often seeing them move on before the warning even expires.
And that's what we've seen a lot, Brad, with these storms here. They've all looked different. We've seen some areas of possible rotation with them. When we look at the velocity data there, it looks a little different, looks a little murky in some areas. But yes, all along this line here, we can look at that potential force embedded rotation. But even outside of the rotation, Brad, we talked about just some of the strong winds, those damaging winds that can mix down, and those straight line winds can do equal the amount of damage. So it really doesn't have to be rotation. And really, when it's straight line winds, it covers a lot more ground. So spatially, that rotation can be a little bit more concentrated. But when we're talking about a straight line wind event, it does cover a lot more ground and also can cause considerable damage. And really along this line, not only are we looking at severe thunderstorm warnings, but these warnings are tagged with that potential for rotation. So even in some cases, we may not even get a tornado warning. That was the case that we also had in Catawba County earlier.
Yeah, the conditions are just, there's so much wind energy in the atmosphere today that it is taking very little to get damaging winds down at the surface, and in this case, quick spin-up tornadoes. And oftentimes, I know it seems like a cop-out here, but by the time the warning is issued, sometimes the thing has already passed. So we've been trying to stay ahead of this, and if you've been following us online or on air or watching my social media profile as I've been posting updates, I've been basically telling everybody, treat all severe thunderstorm warnings today like tornado warnings. These will produce tornadoes with little or no warning. That's technically what almost every severe thunderstorm warning wording will have in it. But mostly, in particular today, you have to take it even more seriously, as these are all producing damaging winds with isolated tornadoes. We're seeing more tornado warnings to the east of us as well. Now, if you're west of this line, the wind and rain is not done. We're seeing a lot of flash flooding in Mecklenburg County. We're seeing all these creeks coming out of their banks. 3-4 inches of rain has fallen in many areas, and it's running off quickly. So we're seeing flash flooding. So the flash flood and wind risk is going to continue. But if you're west of this line, the severe weather from tornadoes and really high-end winds has passed you. But if you're east, that's not the case. So I'm just going to track the whole line, because I think that's probably a more efficient way to do this, because if you're within this line, you just need to seek shelter. So there's the storm track. I put it off to the left. I'll break it down for you there. Albemarle, 324. Ruby, Norwood area, 330-ish. Wadesboro, 334. Ashboro, if it holds up that way, 350, and then heading up towards Hamlet and northern parts of, and even central and northern parts of Richmond County and north of Rockingham, you're going to see that closer to probably 415 or so. And again, I would, when you see these times, don't treat it as a drop, dead time exactly. You got to give it like 5 or 10 minutes either way. So wait, do it earlier, and then wait 5-10 minutes till after that time until you know it's all clear. Again, remember, the radar is not showing you real time. This is a little bit of a delay because of how long it takes the radar to sweep and how fast the storm is moving, but also how long it takes you to get this signal, whether you're streaming or watching cable, satellite, or even broadcast. There is a little bit of a delay. So this thing is flying to the northeast. So the warning's up to 345, which is, probably going to either be canceled early or it's going to move into the next county before we know it. Now, additional warnings out there, severe thunderstorm warnings for these same areas, and actually a lot of flash flood warnings continue. Zoom in one more time, I'll pause it and see what the reflectivity looks like, but let's look at the velocity. Yeah, still really strong circulation showing up there for the radar. I'm gonna grab my cursor here. So we're getting some strong winds like this, and this is rotating in like this. So we've got some rotation in there right there south of Marshville, and that's gonna push over 74 in Marshville, east of Polkton area. They're just west of Polkton, really. Kind of going to split it there. We'll zoom in. It's going to be really close. I think just west of Polkton, probably right on the county line, and then push north towards 218, which 218 comes down from New Salem. That was the old shortcut to get to the beach there before they put in the toll road there in Union County. Beautiful, beautiful area there to travel as you go towards northern Union County, then heading towards western Anson County, and then Norwood, Ansonville, areas up towards Albemarle, going into Stanley County. So areas up towards Stanley County are going to have to watch this as well, because when I back this up, you can see the rotation. To me, it actually looks like it might be getting a little tighter there in the
crossed over 74.
Yeah. So Allen's Crossroads, it's moving. You see how quickly that's a 1 minute volume scan. So it's jumping very quickly. So Marshville, this is on you right now. You should be in your shelter location already. If you're east and north of Marshville, go ahead and start getting your shelter location. If you know somebody in that area, go ahead and let them know that they need to be seeking shelter right now. We've been trying to reiterate this all day that you got to treat everything like it's a tornado warning today until the all clear is given. So this is going to be a trend I think we're going to see all the way through central North Carolina before things calm down. So again, if you're just catching us on air online, this is for a new tornado warning for southeastern Union County at 3:45. It is set to expire, but it looks like to me it's going to be probably out of Union County within the next 10 minutes. I have 3:22 on my watch, and that's probably not going to be in the county that much longer.
It's very interesting too, Brad, to see how confined the polygon is. It's just a little triangle, if I may.
Well, part of the reason that is because Greenville-Spartanburg covers Union County, and Anson County is covered by Raleigh-Durham.
Raleigh-Durham.
So we'll see if the Raleigh-Durham National Weather Service office has to extend it. So that's why you're seeing remember, the county lines, the weather doesn't have any idea that county line is there. That's when humans come into the factor, jurisdictions. So the tornado itself is going to continue pushing northeast. So there's a new severe thunderstorm warning. Raleigh put out a severe thunderstorm warning for this cell, and they put a tornado tag on it. So what you're likely going to see is this new warning is going to be a severe thunderstorm warning, and Raleigh just put that out for northern part. It's a huge warning, actually. It includes all of Stanley County, Anson, and then a whole bunch of central North Carolina counties. So what they're doing is kind of what I was doing before, just taking a big track. We'll go like that, and that's everybody in the path of that storm. And at the very least, you're going to see 60, 70, maybe 80-mile-per-hour winds, straight line, and in worst case scenario, it's a tornado. But either way, wind is wind. The wind is going to cause damage. Trust me, your house, the trees, the power lines, they don't care what produces the wind. They just know if that type of wind speed hits them, they break. So it's no use arguing over straight line, rotation. It doesn't matter. Wind is wind. It causes damage regardless of its cause. So that is what is heading your way. So everybody in this path, from New London to Albemarle to Norwood, Wadesboro, Uwharrie area, Ashboro, all the way to Seven Lakes. Everybody in the path of the storm needs to be in the middle of your house, away from the outside walls and windows. You got to treat all the storms today like they're tornado warnings, not just regular severe thunderstorm warnings. That's just the kind of day we're having, KJ.
Right, and even with this type of setup, Brad, we had the showers out ahead of that main line, and then we got the most intense part of the storm, which is also passing out east of Charlotte. We always talk about here in our neck of the woods, we have storms that are rain wrapped. So a lot of times these are not the type of tornadoes you can look out your window that you would see in the plains, for instance, the topography that you can look out and say, oh, wow, that's a twister coming towards me. Yeah. In this case, we always want you to be weather aware, get to your safe place, because you can't always see that rotation that's touching the ground coming towards you.
Yeah, this is just going to look like a wall of water,
yes.
Rain and coming at you. This is not going to be a visible funnel. That's why it's hard to distinguish between what's a tornado and what's just straight line winds. It's all going to look the same. Now, again, if you're in the path of the storm, remember our safety tips. The reason we tell you to do these tips, get to the middle of your house. What is that? An interior room away from the outside walls and windows, bathrooms, closets. Heck, if you just have an interior hallway or even a cubby or somewhere in the middle, the whole goal here is that you want to put those walls between you, not only from left to right, but up and down. So ceilings and roofs and floors above you protect you from flying debris. That's what is dangerous in tornadoes. It sounds weird to say this. It's not the wind. It's what the wind picks up and throws at you. That's what causes injuries. Most people that get injured or killed in tornadoes, it's from head trauma. They get hit in the head with debris. So protection is the key part. So we're getting some more warnings to pop up as we're on the air. Most of these are severe thunderstorm warnings, but remember, all severe thunderstorm warnings today can and will produce tornadoes with little or no warning.
And Brad, I'm sorry to cut you off, but you brought up a good point. Just because there's a time there where the storm or tornado warning is set to expire, doesn't mean that's the time to let your guard down, right?
Yeah, let us tell you when there's an all clear, because the time is just, it's just an arbitrary time, I'll be honest with you, to kind of give a rough estimate. So, wait till the storm is completely past. One of the things you always worry about in these situations is, if you give a warning too early, sometimes people think if the storm doesn't come within 5 or 10 minutes, it's not coming at all. So oftentimes people will get out of their shelter location and then the tornado will hit. So that's why we always say, just give a little bit of breath to this time. It's not as specific as, I wish we were as good as as appears. I always tell this to my students, precision is not the same as accuracy, okay? Those are not equal terms. So just because you're precise with something doesn't mean it's very accurate. So because there's a specific time doesn't mean that's it. It's right there, plus or minus. In our day and age, most of you are watching us on a streaming service, on a phone, on a cell phone. There's huge delays. So the time you're seeing and hearing my voice is already happened. The time the radar sees this, it's already happened. So you got to give some time and some berth in there for these storms. And again, the whole line is pushing east pretty quickly. And Jane, I know we've seen a lot of power outages today. I haven't looked recently. Have they gone up since we last talked?
In some areas, you're talking about Union County, Stanley County, so let me get to those numbers first. Total, we're looking still over 90,000 Duke customers without power, but that number has come down from previously we were talking about 118,000. So Duke Energy making some progress restoring power, especially to Mecklenburg County. But as I look at Union County right now, about 3,400 customers are without power. That's 10% of the county. So you mentioned that people might be watching us on the stream. I wouldn't doubt it, because there are a lot of folks still without power. Rowan County now up in the way of customers without power, well over 11,000 customers now without. So that's 16% of the county. But let me give you the encouraging word here. Mecklenburg County, we were looking at almost 61,000 customers without power at one point. That is now backing off. 27,000 customers are still without, but that is moving in the right direction. 5% of Mecklenburg County going without power. Those are the notable numbers, Nick, as we join Brad and KJ here looking at the tornado warning for Union County until 3:45.
And we're also tracking things at the airport. You talk about the numbers going down, but the numbers keep on increasing as far as delays.
That ripple effect, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're at 437, and the FAA issued a ground stoppage, which is no longer in effect at the airport. But when they put that ground stoppage into effect around 1 o'clock, at 1:30, there are about 230 delays, and I keep refreshing FlightAware. This is where I'm getting the information from. A bulk of those delays are coming from American Airlines, 244 delays if you're flying with American Airlines. A bulk of those delays are folks leaving Charlotte Douglas International Airport. So again, 437 delays at Charlotte Douglas, 53 cancellations. That number just keeps going up.
Well, if you could see pictures, if it's safe to do so, we mentioned that it is at least the intense part of the storm, Brad and KJ, west of 77, backing off.
Yeah, I hate to say you're out of the woods, but you're out of the woods for severe thunderstorm warnings and tornadoes, but the wind and rain is still an issue. So it's all about level of severity today because there's so much going on. So as you mentioned, Jane, yeah, everywhere west of, I mean, now it's even almost, I would say west of this line here, is clear from severe, but not clear from rain, wind, and flooding. So we're still seeing quite a bit of flooding going on. In fact, I was just looking at the camera. Charlotte Fire Department looks to be doing an active rescue right now off of Briar Creek at Shamrock Drive. I'm seeing firefighters in life jackets walking across to rescue somebody from a bridge, it looks like. So there's active water rescues going on in Mecklenburg County because of flash flooding. So it seems weird. We're giving you the all clear from tornadoes, not the all clear from wind and rain. The reason we're on the air right now and the reason we've been breaking in so often today has been because of damaging winds, tornadoes, but the flooding and wind threat is going to persist into tonight. Even when the rain comes to an end, we're going to see basically high winds and water continue to rise. Because remember, it takes time for the water to run off and get into creeks and streams, so they will continue to rise. And then with the wind staying up between 30 and 40 miles per hour at times tonight, and the ground loosened from 3, 4, 5 inches of rain, trees will still come down after dark tonight, and we're likely going to see power outages in some places might actually spike after things look like they're calming down, KJ.
Right, and that could be a little deceiving as well. You think the storm has passed, but then some of you could still be in the dark later this evening. That's why we've been encouraging you and letting you know that one of those main impacts from the strong wind gusts would be power outages as a result. But right now you can see that we're looking at more of a lighter rain, if I may, compared to the main line. For those of you Charlotte, west of Charlotte now, as you see, we're continuing to track the most intense part of this storm is now east of Charlotte. So just remember that we do have a tornado warning in effect for a section of Union County. This is east of Monroe until 3:45. So we have less than 15 minutes or so, but it is a fast moving part of this storm as it's continuing to move off towards the east. And you can also see this feature here that's starting to bow out just south of Albemarle. This is moving towards Polkton. So once again, this is part of that storm that has the strongest winds that are capable of damage, which is going to be right along this section here east of Charlotte. And those of you to the west, once again, as it continues to push off towards the east, we will still have the ongoing power outages to deal with. We'll have flooding to deal with. We're going to have that water that will be moving downstream as well. So just know that when you see all of these green areas highlighted on the map, which if you can see me, you're likely under some form of a flood alert, whether it's a watch or a warning. We do have areas across the viewing area right now that's dealing with high water. As Brad just mentioned, there was a water rescue that's ongoing right now in real time. I've seen numerous flooding events near parks and streams, bodies of water. So make sure you're prepared to seek higher ground in the event there's flooding. And also we have some images right now coming in on social media.
Yeah, the amount of flooding is pretty staggering because I think that's the thing. Everyone's thinking about the wind today and the flooding's really kind of snuck up on a lot of people. But I was looking at some of the totals earlier from some of the rainfall in Mecklenburg County. There's some areas approaching 4 inches of rain today, which is amazing because it fell so quickly. It fell in a matter of 2 or 3 hours. I mean, there's flooding on just about every major creek in Mecklenburg County right now. And no, there's those typical places that, I mean, I've been here 21 years now,
You've seen
that flood. But even today, I'm like, that's even higher than the typical, like McMullen Creek. That area floods at Addison Drive a lot. It goes over the road, but now it's all the way up by people's houses in that neighborhood. Typically, it doesn't get that far into the region. So we got a new tornado warning, guys, that is an extension of the previous one, and this is kind of what we expected, that they were going to issue this. So, Raleigh took over, and they issued a new tornado warning for Stanley County, and that's until 4 p.m. And that's the same storm. It's just now shifted. So you could see that storm south of Albemarle. There's a little bit of a couplet right
Look
here.
how it kinks in right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
You know, we always say that word. It feels weird. It's when the line, straight line winds, typically in a squall line like this, the wind field looks straight. When you see little ebbs and flows, or what we call kinks in the line, think of a hose. If your hose has ever gotten kinked up and you hear that sound of the water kind of rushing through the kink, that's because the water's accelerating through there. And when that happens in the atmosphere, that acceleration can create higher winds and actually rotation. So what you're seeing is in these little bow echoes and these pop out like this, is you're seeing that right south of Albemarle, maybe a little bit of rotation showing up right there. And that's what's happening in the line. You don't want to see straight line winds all the time, but in this case, you'd rather see this line be straight like this. But look at the way this line is actually oriented. If you look carefully, I'm going to actually change the color of my line here so it's a little easier to see.
See a little bit better.
We'll make it a little bit bigger too, because that's a little bit harder to see. We'll make it a little bit bigger. So look at the line. It looks like a snake. These little
Right.
S curves. So every one of these, what you're seeing is the wind is pushing out this way, the wind is pushing out that way, the wind is pushing out that way, and then the wind is pushing in there. And so all these areas can actually spin up. So that's what we call it a QLCS. We like to use acronyms in the weather department. And what that stands for, it's a long term for a squiggly line of storms.
We have a weather IQ on it too.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to check that out, but a QLCS, believe it or not, it actually stands for quasi-linear convective system. I know that's a mouthful. You're probably like, I would prefer you say QLCS next time. But it basically means a squiggly line of storms. And when they squiggle like this, you tend to see quick spin-up tornadoes instead of just straight line winds. And that's what we're seeing right now from Albemarle all the way back into northern Chesterfield County.
Right, and the wind is essentially changing speed and direction with height as we look at areas of rotation here. And this is one area, and we've been talking about looking at the velocity data. And Brad, I know a lot of times we don't use this image a lot when we talk about Doppler winds. And really it's more of an X-ray looking inside the storm, and it's looking at the winds. They're elevated nonetheless, but sometimes when we get a sample of the winds, it can give us an indication of what that wind speed is that could be mixed down to the ground. And if we look at the velocity with it, and put the query on here, this will give us an idea. For instance, this one's 43, and a lot of times we've seen them much, much higher when we sample the wind speeds that could potentially mix down to the ground. So once again, this is just one of those areas that we look at when we sample the storms. But if you take it back here, just go back just a little bit, notice how this sort of kinks in a little bit more as we've talked about. And this is that area that is warned right now for Union and Stanley counties. And let's put it back on the velocity data there.
Yeah, where I'm really worried about is southeast of Albemarle now. So this area southeast of Albemarle, between Albemarle and River Haven, on Stony Gap Road, there's definitely some rotation there. As KJ was just pointing out, that's significant little bulge of wind there. Definitely tells me we're getting some spinning. So heading towards Baden and Uwharrie National Forest, this is going to be traveling towards Montgomery County as well. So if you're in Stanley County, central Stanley area, that is the area we're concerned about. But even southern Stanley, it looks like another little kink in that line is developing. And so we've got two separate warnings, but it's essentially the same line. And that's why if you've been watching it all today, we've just basically been tracking the whole line. Just everybody in the path of this, you got to treat it like it's a tornado warning. So Albemarle, Uwharrie, Wadesboro, Troy, Asheville, Bisco. I mean, all these areas, you're in the path of a line of very strong winds. Some of it's straight line and some of it's rotating. But in the grand scheme of things, wind is wind. It's not going to matter whether it's rotating or straight. It's going to cause damage. And that's what we're worried about. We want you and your family to be safe. So head to that shelter location. If you're not familiar with it, if you're a kid home from school right now, and maybe you're watching something or your phone went off and you're wondering what's going on, this is what we want you to do. If mom and dad aren't there, head to that middle room in the interior of your house. Head to the lowest floor. Grab your brother, your sister, your pets. Head there right now. If you have a helmet, great. Get that skateboard helmet, football helmet, maybe dad's hard hat or something. Throw it on your head. We want you to protect your head. Put as many walls between you and the outside. I want you to think of those walls as like force fields. We're going to be blocking the bad stuff from getting to you. So the more of those force fields we have, the better to protect you from the flying debris that the winds are picking up and throwing at you. Could be parts of trees, could be debris in the yard, could be parts of other buildings around you, but we want you to find that safe spot. We will give you the all clear when you can leave that spot, but bring your phone or your iPad with you and we will give you the all clear on when you can head out, because these storms have had a history of unfortunately causing damage and actually one fatality today, is which we didn't want to see, and that was most likely because of a tree entering a home or a structural collapse with stuff landing on people. So that's why the hard hat in the middle of the house is the place we want you to be. So there's our 2 tornado warnings. Union County, that one is set to expire in 5 minutes. That's actually weakened, but the more pressing storm is the one
It goes into 4.
Yeah, in Stanley County into Montgomery. That is what we're worried about. We've got a live view in Albemarle right now, and they are in the heart of this storm. I know we had a crew out there earlier, but man, it has been a rough day to the west, but now our eastern counties, and you could see it is pouring, and it's 3:41 in the afternoon, KJ, and it looks like it might be 6 o'clock.
Right, it's about to be dark out there, and
Yeah.
these are some of the images coming in across the area right now, and we've seen the gray skies all day, but this is part of that storm that is most severe, most concerning, and the one that we have to take seriously, as this line is now punching its way east of the area now. For those of you in Stanley County, we do have this tornado warning in effect until 4 p.m., so we want to make sure that you're getting to your safe place, you heed this warning, and one of the things I observed from that live image is that not many people are out there, which is a good indicator that people are staying off the road.
I was encouraged. We saw I-77 earlier, and there was barely anybody on there, which was great. But I will tell you, the flooding is no joke. I mean, tornadoes are bad, but the flooding, KJ, look at these totals. I am blown away in Mecklenburg County. So the rain gauge at Compton Street there in South Mecklenburg County, not too far from Pineville and 485 there as you go down towards Carowinds, 5 inches of rain. 5 inches of rain already. Some areas in South Charlotte are approaching 4 inches of rain. And a lot of this fell just between this morning, mid-morning, and right now. So 6-7 hours of rain.
Right, and you cannot estimate the power of water. And looking at the rain rates right now, with the heaviest part of the storm, the heaviest rain that's coming down in Albemarle, we're looking at almost 1 3/4 inches per hour. So we're getting doused with showers this afternoon, and it is piling up. Brad, some of these areas that poor drainage areas, it's not just the low-lying areas right now. There's so many areas that are getting inundated with water and rising water.
I just got a video from Little Sugar Creek, and I know a lot of these areas where the bridges go over the creek on the Greenway, and some of these are completely underwater. So yeah, just, you know, some of these are meant to flood. The greenways are there for a reason. That's what we want to see. They're the floodplain for us, but boy, some of the water is really rising more than we normally see in some of the summertime thunderstorms that we get around here, where you see the water come up. So, and just a heads up, keep the kids away from the greenways and the parks. I know Freedom Park was shut down because they were concerned. This water is flowing quickly.
It is.
And you could get trapped in it and pulled under one of these culverts or bridges where there's no room.
Right.
I mean, it'll submerge you underwater. So please keep your animals, your pets, all your kids away from this water, this fast-moving water. It's not something you should be playing in because it is incredibly dangerous. So all these facets of severe weather we've had today, from tornadoes to straight-line winds, and now the flood threat is really starting to ramp up across the area. So the reason we broke in, though, and we'll be on until 4 o'clock when the news starts, it's coming up here shortly, but you can see we've got a tornado warning for Stanley County. The one for Union County is pretty much expired. And I will tell you good news, as my watch is going off like crazy, like it has all day. The good news is we're starting to see the tornado watch whittled away. So the all clear, I said I would do an all clear, and I'm going to do that now. Anywhere west of that red, you're in the all clear from severe, not all clear from flooding and wind. And what I mean by severe is tornadoes and straight line winds associated with thunderstorms. So the watch has been canceled early, essentially I-85 to 77. So that's good news,
Right.
that things, at least from that standpoint, are getting better. What's not good news is that we're still seeing flooding, and we still have tornado warnings to the east of us for some of our communities now in Stanley County. And it's almost out of Stanley County. So here's the good news. Yeah.
And to think we started today, Brad, with wintry weather, the rain quickly turned over to snow last night, overnight in the mountains.
And had that ice, had a 1/4 inch of ice in Banner Elk, Boone area, even up there, had some issues because the ice and then the wind brought down some trees and power lines up there, which caused all kinds of issues. But it quickly changed to rain up there, thank goodness. Any more ice would have been a big, big problem for areas in the mountains.
I think one thing, too, as you mentioned about the greenways, with so many people shut inside today because of the heavy rain, I think some people who are just itching to exercise, too, to keep that in mind, that don't try to run on a greenway as well because of that flood potential, the rise in water, because it could certainly be impactful. I know the rain is going to let up some for some of those of you that have just gotten that all clear, so just be mindful of those areas of high water. Some of those trails may be covered with water, and you got to figure out how to dance and run around them. But
People are asking, are we out of the woods for weather? It's hard to tell today because, like, you're telling people, hey, the tornado threat is past, but the wind and flood threat is not over yet. So just be aware of that the wind and flood threat is going to continue long after the tornado watch is canceled and the rain actually stops. Because the one thing about this system, it's so dynamic. It's a large, large system. I'll show you the overall view. Even behind the cold front, the winds wrapping around here are going to be really, really strong, and the ground's saturated, and it takes time for the water to run off to these creeks and streams. Remember, the first thing the water hits pavement, runs to the storm drain goes to maybe a ditch or a culvert or a pipe, goes to one small creek, goes to a bigger creek, goes to a river. I mean, that takes time for that process. So those areas, the water could actually go up as we get into the evening hours.
Guys, we're just going to jump in here. Nick Sturdivant, Jane Monreal, as we come up on 4 o'clock. You guys have been really covering this from the get-go, and appreciate all of the warnings coming on the air before we were at an official warning, because things change just like that. We're looking at footage right now. Where is this? Exit 38 on 85 to 77. It is shut down due to flooding. And you can see there's a live look. But Nick, that one crew member out there on the back, pretty much up to his hip in water.
It's a lot of water.
That's a storm drain he's trying to clear out. So it must have got clogged up with something.
You were talking about it,
That's not a job I would want.
Oh, seriously. These crews are just standing by, ready to clear things up when they can get out there.
Yeah, this time of year, you get so many leaves too that are, blowing around that helps clog it up. But the rain itself has it's been incredible. It's rare to see 3, 4, 5 inches of rain in a day in January. Usually we'd see this with a tropical system, late summer, early fall, or a stalled front in the spring. But to see this in January is pretty impressive. This has just been one of those.
There's somebody else coming in to help out too.
Must be a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're driving, don't drive into that standing water out there because you just don't know how deep it is. The other thing is sometimes the road could be washed out. We've seen reports in western part of the state, especially in the mountains and foothills, where roads are completely gone. And it looks like a puddle, but you don't realize underneath that it's deep, deep water because the road is gone.
Doesn't take much to get lost or flood out, right?
Yeah, and as we get close to sunset, guys, it looks pretty dark out there now, but I'm looking at my watch. Sunset's at 5:29. So as we get close to sunset, your visibility is going to be even worse. The road's wet. There could be branches, debris, power lines, and then water. So I don't want to tell you not to go out, but I would tell you not to go.
I know.
That's one of those things. You should probably stay inside.
It's one of those things that you gotta
stay off the roads. And speaking of a traffic alert, we got one within the last hour from the airport, Charlotte Douglas Airport. They issued they posted this on X about an hour ago. Traffic alert, Wilkinson Boulevard between Old Dowd Road and Sam Wilson Road. They also posted about 30 minutes ago. It is closed due to flooding. So just another testament of this weather. Wilkinson Boulevard, westbound between Sam Wilson Road and Old Dowd Road, reopening one lane of travel. And that's what they posted there on X in the last 30 minutes, you guys.
People need to just check their flight anyway, because Nick's been covering the cancellations and delays, and it's all going up. Even the folks without power, the number went down to 88,000 in the Carolinas. We are back up to 94,000 customers without power, including Stanley County. Actually, not too bad considering the tornado warning. Right now, it looks like Duke is saying 242 customers are without power. That's 2% of the county without power. But Mecklenburg County still looking at about 25,000 customers without power.
Yeah, just looking at some of the traffic maps too, guys, there's a lot of roads are shut down because of standing water or a tree down. So there might be just a pocket here and there, but there are a lot of closures on area roadways because of water. And even if it's a lane or half a lane, just be really careful. It's not a great day to be out. I think it was such a good idea that so many schools and businesses decided to close today. I know initially a lot of people questioned, like, why are we doing this? Today is a good example of why, because it was just not, I said this yesterday, it was really like a tropical storm making landfall here and us getting the remnants of a tropical storm or a hurricane, because that's basically the type of impacts we had. So the good news is that tornado warning is beginning to wind down for Stanley County. For the folks that are watching our stream over in Montgomery County, that storm is moving into your county, so it's crossing the county line. And I know, on air, folks in our area are probably in Stanley County, but if you're in El Dorado, Troy, those are the areas east of Albemarle. That storm is now moving into Montgomery County. So even though the warning is set to expire in 9 minutes, we're just going to stay on to the top of the hour because our 4 o'clock news starts there, Nick.
I do have a question for you. So as this severe weather starts to move out, you mentioned it earlier, is the flooding and the wind gusts, that's going to be a problem for folks.
Yeah, so let me show you something real quick, because earlier we had the wind speeds, and I'm going to try to find it because I lost my graphic earlier, but the wind speeds behind the front are actually very impressive through the evening hours, even after the wind calms down. So I'm going to show you the max wind gusts today first. These are the highest wind gusts reported at the airports and the official reporting stations. Charlotte Douglas had a wind gust of 56 miles per hour. Concord 44, but Bank of America Stadium, there's a sensor on the top of the deck there, 62 mile per hour wind gusts today. So really strong winds, but behind the system, I expect the winds will stay up tonight into the morning hours because of the strong wind flow around this. So we'll show you the futurecast winds. So right now we'll start, you see the winds are really pushing off, but look what happens overnight. Right there at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's like a secondary surge of wind from the southwest. Now it's not raining, this is not associated with thunderstorms, this is just wind around the low pressure. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, the winds all of a sudden spike back up close to 40 to 50 miles per hour. Now at this time, remember, we've had 4 to 5 inches of rain in parts of the area. The ground is saturated. So that's why I said there might be a lag in tree and power line issues well after the storm moves out. There's some kind of secondary surge here during the overnight. The winds really don't calm down until early tomorrow morning. In the mountains, though, they will stay up through tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, Nick, I think even after the rain and the severe weather moves out, we might be dealing with flooding and wind issues even into tonight.
And we could see more power outages.
Sure, absolutely. And are we still looking at a ground stop at Charlotte Douglas?
It has cleared.
Okay.
But we are, let me refresh, FlightAware, 461 delays at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, 55 cancellations. Again, a bulk of those delays are coming out of American Airlines and folks are flying out of Charlotte Douglas International Airport.
Right. A lot of folks, I mean, are traveling out of the country, and
Yeah.
Charlotte is their connection. So
Yeah, yeah.
just might miss
The
the
ground
flight.
stop is
That's
going to cause
unfortunate.
issues because you've now delayed so many flights.
Right.
And crews and aircraft that needed to be at another airport for another flight. It's just
Yeah.
the spoken
That
hub
domino
system.
effect.
That's the problem with the air travel when you have a big delay like this today. And I tell you, severe thunderstorms are the worst thing for air travel. The wind, if it goes a certain direction, yeah, it makes for bumpy flights, but you can still travel. But you get severe weather over the airport, ground stop. And that shuts everything. Because remember, it's not just the aircraft they're worried about, the ground crews. You don't want them outside loading planes, refueling planes when there's severe weather overhead. So you can't even maintain the planes when there's severe weather over the airport.
Absolutely. Union County still looking at 11% of the county without power, although that warning has expired. Of course, what's left in its path with those strong winds, power outages. We're seeing Mecklenburg County, we're still looking at about 25,000 customers without power. So folks we appreciate you watching us on your OTT, your device, your app. And this is where you should keep it, and we come on when things warrant, and they have warranted all day. So yeah, great call that kids were told to stay home or remote learning and all that. As we come up on 4 o'clock, we will bring you the regular newscast as scheduled and continue our coverage, though, of all the storm damage.
And Brad, I see the storm moving northeast. Stanley County still in the thick of things?
Yeah, it's technically under the warning, but Nick, the storm has actually moved out of the county.
Okay.
So that's one of those things where we talked earlier about the specific times, and I think storms don't know county lines, they don't know the clock, they just do their thing. But the worst of the storm is now in Montgomery County. So still some strong winds in Stanley County, but the tornadic circulation has moved out of Stanley County completely. So I can kind of give you the clear from the tornado there. And as that line pushes east, we'll give you the all clear from tornadic storms and severe thunderstorms, but the wind and flooding. I was just going to turn off the radar here for a second just to kind of show you the number of flood warnings. I mean, every county to the west is under some type of flood warning. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen this many flood warnings since like Florence moved through, and we had pretty much, I think at one point every county in our viewing area was under a flood warning. We're not too far away from that threshold right now. The only counties that aren't technically under flood warnings I believe are Chester, Lancaster, and Chesterfield counties. Every other county in our viewing area is under a flood warning right now. Just goes to show you how much rain we've had.
And Brad, you can weigh in on this. I mean, we're in January.
Ugh.
I mean, we usually are talking about winter weather around this time.
Yeah.
Not severe weather.
That's the problem with having warm temperatures in the winter. I mean, I know we always joke about, there's snow lovers and cold weather lovers, and people, I love it warm. The problem is in the winter, warm temperatures aren't supposed to be in the winter. The jet stream this time of year is the strongest the jet stream is. During the colder months, the jet stream sits over us, and it's the strongest winds that we get during the year are during the winter. Well, normally that's not a big deal. They stay above our head. But when the surface gets warm and humid, that allows for the atmosphere to mix down those jet stream winds. So you've ever wondered why the springtime we get severe weather? Because that's the crossover of the warm, humid, and the jet stream from the winter. But if you have it in the winter, you're going to just extend the spring type severe weather into the winter months. So some of the worst tornadoes can occur in the winter if you get warm air. So it's not warm and sunny all the time when it warms up in the winter. It could be like this, and this is a direct cause of having really warm water over the Gulf of Mexico, the East Coast, and then over us.
Major disturbance.
Yeah.
Brad, with these flood warnings, how does it doesn't so much expire, but we just need to watch where we're driving.
Yeah, so the flood warnings, they can last for hours because they'll wait till the water levels on the creeks drop. So it'll take a while. You might not see some of these flood warnings expire until during the day tomorrow, even with 12 hours of dry weather. So what you need to watch out for is driving is number one, but the greenways in our area, big issue. Don't go near the greenways. And any kind of low water crossing or low dips in the road, those areas that people know, those low-lying areas, if you live at a lower elevation, you're going to want to stay at a higher elevation until the water begins to subside. And then over the next coming days, guys, we're going to have to watch the Catawba River chain, the area lakes, Lake Norman, Lake Wiley, Mount Lake. That water will rise for days as the water moves downstream. Because remember, in the mountains, they've had several inches of rain. that water's got to work its way down from the mountains down here to the Piedmont. So don't be surprised if there's flooding along the lakes and the river well into the middle and end of the week.
And we were bone dry in November.
I could tell you we were doing great with the drought. This is going to pretty much put an end to it. This has been about a month and a half of rain, and more rain.
As that, your warning is now heading through.